而家開到6點鐘，咁而家首先請局長咧同埋一啲團體，唔該晒同事，唔該。
今日咁正斗啊，煲咗佢嚇，黑體。我哋啲老人家。
我有啲朋友將個電話啲字打到鬼咁大啊！係啊係須知。係唔該，局長。
Thank you, Secretary.
但不能夠用。
即係請佢盡量都係發言嘅時候先用。上次你條線你都俾佢哋話唔好借到其他人。
係啦係啦，OK， 好。歡迎大家嚇。
Welcome.
下晝呢啲人齊啲好似啊，下晝好似齊啲啲人啊，多咗啲人啦。上晝慢慢等係咪啊？
跟住都上次有40個團體出。
咁係啊。
15個呢兩個團體代表佢會稍遲先至佢會嚟嘅。
係咪？好啊。
咁我或者唔知過到發言過。
OK， 歡迎大家。
Welcome to you all. Now, on the 25th of March, we held a public hearing and we heard the views of 40 deputations. So for this meeting, we will continue to listen to your views. Now we have a total of 35 deputations that are here. So after listening to your views, the chairman will let members and to ask questions and the government officials to answer your members' questions. Originally, this meeting was scheduled for the morning, but the secretary wanted to come, so that's why we've rescheduled it to the afternoon. When you speak, the secretary really wants to listen to you, so I think this is a good arrangement. And I'd like to remind you, I think actually you're familiar with this. Now, you have earphones on your table. We have 3 channels. 0 is floor, 1 is Cantonese, 2 is English, and 3 is 普通话. And I also would like to remind the deputations that you will be given a chance to speak in order, and you will not be protected by the Legislative Council Powers and Privileges Ordinance, and your submissions are also not protected by the ordinance. And I would like to draw to your attention that a note has been issued for the public who attend Legislative Council meetings. So there are security measures in place, and I hope you can comply with our rules. And I know that some deputations would like to bring with them some banners, but it would be great if the banners can be put at the back, because if you put in the front, then you will be blocking others. Please do not affect other deputations. I would like to ask the secretary, would you like to say something before the meeting begins? Well, I would like to listen to the deputations first, and then I will make my response. Okay, thank you. Madam Chair, thank you for rescheduling the meeting so that I can come to listen to the views of the deputations. Well, we are pleased to do that. First of all, let us invite the deputations to speak, and each deputation will be given please wait for a minute. Each deputation will be given 3 minutes. If you speak for too long, we will have to stop you. So, and if you have submitted submissions beforehand, that's great. But if you haven't done so, please give us your written notes afterwards. Let us invite the first speaker, Mr. Leung Ka-wei, Community Officer of Civil Force. Thank you, Madam Chair. Well, in the Chinese culture, we should take care of the elderly. I think we all agree to do this. Now, Hong Kong has to develop universal retirement protection, and we think we need to take reference from other countries. We should not repeat the mistakes made by other countries, such as the US and the European countries. And we should develop a system which is adequate for Hong Kong. It should be sustainable and it should be all-rounded. That's why the civil force suggests that the government should look at Professor Chow Wing-sen's report. He conducted a survey in this regard, and that should be used as foundation. And the government should revise the existing system, which consists only of OH allowance and CSSA. And in Mr. Chow's report, is divided in three tiers, $1,200, $2,400, and $3,600. For the first tier, there's no means test. For the second and third tiers, there will be means test, and the applicant is in a household. So by doing so, the elderly who are on CSSA will not be stigmatized, and elderly will be able to benefit. They would not be transferring their properties to other people so as to try to get more benefits. So by doing so, the government can address the problems of elderly in poverty, and the young people would not be forced to shoulder the burden. This system would not affect the existing 3 pillars for retirement. For the second tier and the third tier applicants, in the short run, there will be an increase in number. However, when employees retire now, they can only get tier 1 protection, that is $1,200. So it will not have a significant impact on public spending. So the civil force suggests that this model be adopted, because Hong Kong is facing an aging population, and that will be a major challenge. Thank you. Next, Liberal Party opposes Universal Retirement Protection Concern Group, Ms. Pearl Chang. Good afternoon. On behalf of the Liberal Party opposes Universal Retirement Protection Concern Group, I would like to say something. We think that everybody should be protected when they retire. And however, there are some options in community which are not mature, and these options might be abused by the public, and this will create a huge burden for the younger generations. When we look at the present situation, there are 430,000 people who are on CSSA, and 780,000 people are on OH allowance. Although the government has a handsome sum of surplus, but this surplus cannot be all used to resolve the retirement issue, because the government would have to bear this burden in a sustainable manner. The Liberal Party hopes that a feasible option can be put together, and we should encourage protection plans on a voluntary basis. And while people can enjoy retirement protection, this should not become a burden for the young people. Now, before a consensus is forged, maybe we should consider all sorts of options. In the medium and short run, we should aim to enhance the quality of retirement life. And at the same time, the Liberal Party thinks that if the MPF system has to be improved and the trustee fees would have to be cut, people may have taken out several MPF schemes, and at the same time, they may have to pay more management fees. The government should introduce quality and diversified funds so that the market can enjoy good competitions. And the MPF system can develop in a healthy manner. At the same time, the public can pay less for the trustees. These are the views of the Liberal Party. We hope that a feasible option can be put together. We want to see that the government forge the best plan. Next, a Liberal Party Youth Committee, Mr. Dominic. Liberal Party member, Mr. Harris Young. I'm sorry, I'm skipped a person. Liberal Party Youth Committee Chairperson, Mr. Dominic Lee. Well, Madam Chair, we are now talking about retirement protection, and the young should not be asked to support the old. We were born in the 80s or 90s, and we're not making a lot of money each month. We have to pay our rent. We have to support our families. And now you ask us to fork out an extra sum of money for a retirement protection scheme, and we can only get money back after 30 or 40 years. Would that be fair to young people? Our parents have made a lot of contribution to society. They have sacrificed a lot for us. Now, it's only fair for us to support them. However, somebody suggests that this burden should be shared by other people. Now, we should support our own parents, but how come we are asked to support other people's parents? There are a lot of elderly people who are in need in our community. As young people, yes, we can help them. However, the taxpayers' money should be spent on the people who are in the greatest need. Mr. Li Ka-shing has a lot of money, and members here are also getting $100,000 per month. So why do we have to support your retirement life? Now, if you're talking about giving $3,000 to each person every month, I think only the people in most need should be given the money. Instead, they should get $6,000 or $7,000. And also, have you think about the sustainability of this plan? Now, Hong Kong's population is aging, and now in a few years' time, we will have to support more elderly people. We have seen that European countries and the U.S. are facing problems in this area. Don't you think Hong Kong will repeat this mistake? After the handover, the expenditure on social welfare has increased by 200%. And when we look at our social welfare expenditure, very soon we will be facing a structural deficit. Now, if the improvement in social welfare can really help people, that would be a problem. However, since the handover, have you seen improvement in this regard? Our own retirement life is our own responsibility. Our parents should be supported by ourselves. We should not be asked to support other people's parents. Now, there are many labor sector members here. Fernando Zhang, Mr. Zhang, yes, you are speaking, but I don't think you should be criticizing my colleagues. We can accept your views, but please respect that this is a proper public hearing. You shouldn't be criticizing our members.
Mr. Dominic Lee from the Liberal Youth Committee. And thank you, Chairman. The younger generation, well, we have a lower and lower fertility rate, and by 2041, out of every 3 persons in Hong Kong would be young, would be elderly persons. This pay-as-you-earn system is just a Ponzi scam. you think that we will have new members in the workforce to support the elderly generation? This is really a scam. Why do we want the government to do this? We want to be fair. Each generation should support itself, and we want a fair retirement protection. We should not support universal retirement situation. Well, what do you mean by protection? Now, if you have if you're a billionaire, I give you a few $1,000, you call it protection. If you don't have any food to eat, I give you $100. Now, if Mr. James Tan and Michael Tian, do they need any protection? We are thinking of giving protection to people in need. And if tomorrow Li Ka-shing, Michael or James Tan can get this protection, then what is meant by protection? Those who are in need should get more. Those who are able should contribute more. We call this a fairness. Those who don't need it should not receive his share. So this pay-as-you-earn system is not useful. If we talk about universal coverage to everyone regardless of his means and income, this is not fair. We want a means-tested retirement protection system, not an earn-as-you-pay system. We should ask this generation of people to support their own generation. We should not ask the shrinking future generation to support this generation. We want fairness and just. We want a sustainable retirement protection system. We should not just consider the retirement needs of this 1 or 2 years or the coming decade. We don't want a system that is not sustainable. Many people will query whether what we say is true or not. There is no need for you to query us. Well, in European countries and financial centers, you can see the problems. I think we don't want Hong Kong to be among their league. Thank you. Mr. Victor Ng, member of the Liberal Party Retirement Policy Concern Group. I am Victor Ng. We are against this pay-as-you-earn universal retirement protection system. Every 1,000 members of the workforce are supporting 3,300 dependent persons, 3,033 dependent persons. By 2041, this figure will rise to 465 per 1,000. That means two have to support three. Have to support two, and this is not fair, and it's not going to be financially sustainable. As mentioned by our party members, this is immature, and even those who are rich can get a share, so resources cannot be evenly distributed. In many developed countries, they face great pressure. For instance, the euro debt, and in European countries have caused problems. In September 2010, Aviva had a report. There is a shortfall of $1.9 trillion EU dollars in Europe, and the figure for the UK is 379 billion, or 60% of its GDP, the highest in all EU countries, to be followed only by Argentina. And the gap is 24% and 18% respectively in other countries. So this pay-as-you-earn system is not an appropriate model. The Liberal Party would like to have a feasible universal retirement protection system, and it should be on a voluntary basis. This will ensure that elderly persons will be supported, and the contributions should not be a heavy burden on our future generation, affecting our social and economic development. I hope that the administration and various sectors can consider this very carefully. Thank you. Mr. Calvin Ho from Hong Kong Association for Democracy and People's Livelihood. Having heard the four speakers from the Liberal Party, I am very agitated because these 4 LP members quoted a lot of figures to oppose universal retirement protection. Mr. Lee was particularly eloquent. Now we have to refer to facts. They say that because many people are on CSSAs and therefore welfare spending is very high. But have you noted that 52% of the CSSA recipients are elderly persons? They are old without retirement protection, so they are forced to live on the dole. And Mr. Lee said that we should contribute for our own generation and not for the future generation. And then why are you paying 5% of your salary to an MPF for 40 years before you can get them? What's the logic? And some say that in other countries, they face bankruptcy because of universal retirement protection. In fact, Greece is the only country facing this fate. What about other countries such as Australia, New Zealand, Canada, Germany? They also have universal retirement protection, and yet physically they are very sound, and they've also got a very healthy retirement protection system. And they say that this pay-as-you-earn system is not going to be sustainable. We've been talking about this for 10 years. If you don't know this, perhaps you should do your homework. Well, actuaries have studied the system, saying that it is sustainable. And you say it is not. Perhaps you are smarter than these experts. And your party leader, Mr. James Tan, claimed in his election platform that he has conscience, and therefore he has decided to stand out in the election. However, he has overlooked the retirement needs of hundreds of thousands of elders in the community. Where has his conscience gone? And LP also said that our tax system will not be able to support universal retirement protection system. Good. Why is it so? Because we are not asking those who can afford it to pay more. Let me repeat, our tax system has not asked those who can afford it to pay more, all because of LP members. They keep asking for tax cuts, and therefore we have this situation, and agrees they don't have a sound taxation system. So we should reform our tax system in order to be sustainable and fair. For those who have earned those who have paid a salaries tax, you know that we have this salary bands. But if you earn more than $1.62 million per year, then you give a flat rate of 15%. So the more you earn, the less you pay. Can I go on? I'm afraid not. All right, I will allow other members to speak. Mr. Anthony Wong, Hong Kong Council of Social Service. Thank you. I represent the Hong Kong CSS to comment on this matter. I think community organizations have put forward many proposals on universal retirement protection. The Commission on Poverty has commissioned Professor Nelson Chow to carry out a study on this. We would like to have information backed up by hard data so the members of the public can have a rational and informed discussion. We hope that the administration can conduct a public consultation on universal retirement protection as soon as possible with the details and time frame included so that we can cope with our aging problem, which will see us peak in 20-30 years' time. As mentioned by a member before me, a speaker before me, elders, the poor living in poverty have no protection at all. Many of them are CSSA recipients or OALA or OAA recipients. This shows that many grassroots elders are not able to make ends meet. So I hope that the administration can, in due course, review is measures that failed to meet the financial needs of our elders. For instance, elders may be living with their family members. As a result, they are not eligible for financial assistance. I hope that there can be short-term measures to satisfy the need of our elders. And many employees rely on their MPF benefits for retirement. We know that for MPF schemes, administrative costs are high, and those who are not economically active do not get any protection. And there is also the offsetting arrangement of long service payment and sufferance payment. They have weakened the protection offered by MPF. I hope there can be some review and scrutiny of our MPF system. For instance, we've asked whether we can have public trustees and also the forward arrangement so that even the low-income earners and the underprivileged, they can have measures under the MPF to be protected. Thank you. Mr. Nicholas Chen from Academic for Universal Pension. Thank you. I'd like to respond to comments made by some of the speakers. Well, as said by the representative of Civic Power, I would like to implement Professor Nelson Chow's proposal as soon as possible. When he was interviewed last year, Professor Chow said more than once that we should implement a non-means tested retirement protection scheme involving tripartite contributions. And then Civic Power in the last election claimed that they supported universal retirement protection. I don't know whether they have changed their stance. Now we have quite a few speakers from the Liberal Party, and they have already stated their party position. It's good that we have members from the LP here to tell us their views, but I think they are sometimes contradicting themselves. Mr. Francis Yik made a speech on universal retirement protection in 2012, and he said that the income or the asset limit of the asset limit the ceiling should be raised to $500,000. Now, if LP thinks that the elderly should be well provided for, then shouldn't we implement universal retirement protection? And if we think that those who can afford it should pay more, should the LP take the lead to abolish free education, MPF, and free medical service for all in the community? Universal retirement protection is just like free education and medical services for all. We're talking about very basic and fundamental protection for the 7 million people in Hong Kong. Let's not mix it up with alleviation of poverty and social welfare. All 7 million people in Hong Kong have contributed to the development of society. All right. This earners, you pay universal retirement protection system is not going to be sustainable, you may say. But we are talking about savings. There is a partially refunded element. That is, while we still have a surplus of manpower, we should take this opportunity to start our contributions to cater for the future generation when there will be more elderly persons than young people in Hong Kong. So I ask for an early implementation of universal retirement protection system with tripartite contribution. There should be a public consultation, and let's talk and do not drag your feet anymore.
Next, an organization fighting for universal retirement protection in Sai Kung. Chow Pui An. Good afternoon. I represent the organization fighting for the universal retirement protection in Saikong. I'm a housewife and I am a chronic patient. We think that the government should try to resolve the problem for retirement for everybody. But the government's existing system cannot afford such protection to its people. MPF accrued benefits are of a low level and people are not making a lot of money. And also for the MPF trustees, they are charging a lot of management fees. And also people are forced to take investment risk. So if the financial situation is not good, then the money will just go down the drain. And also there is another problem because the MPF system has an offsetting arrangement that is really unfair to employees. We are very disappointed in the government's present schemes, that is the OH living allowance and old age allowance. This afford no protection to the elderly. And also now there are means tests for the elderly. People who are relying on OH allowance are actually the poorest people in society. The government is not doing enough to help them, and now our society is even more divided. Everything is very expensive in our society. For our monthly salaries, they can just barely make ends meet. So how can we save money for our retirement? And for housewives, how can they save money for retirement? When we get old, we have to rely on CSSA, but if we want to rely on CSSA, we cannot live with our sons and daughters, and they even have to sign a paper severing their relationship with us. So this is really unacceptable. We think the government should set up a universal retirement protection scheme for the people instead of establishing a so-called future fund. There should be no means test so that the elderly can enjoy a dignified life. And also government employers and employees should all make contributions. They should all bear this burden. And also for the MPF system, it should be incorporated into the Universal Retirement Protection Scheme. Thank you. Then we have the chairman of Liwa House MAC, Mr. Zhang Luikang. In 2014, at the beginning of the 2014, the newspaper reported that in January that the MPF rate of return is negative 2.43. That means everybody in Hong Kong has lost $4,400. This is really unacceptable. Now, the MPF system cannot provide retirement protection, and this is already a fact. Now, lately, the financial secretary said that he will be setting up a future fund. Now, does the SAR government think that we are kids? The future fund is a scam. I have a classmate. He lived in a luxury flat, but he's also very worried about his retirement, and we are just ordinary people. When a person gets old, he would be most worried about not having any income. Even though you have savings, if you have $2,000 at home and you only use 2 cents a day, but if you don't have any income, then after a few years, the money will be gone. And if you fall ill, then all the money will go down the drain. We should save money for the future. This is a good Chinese practice. However, the SAR government is not doing anything to help us. Now, the government officials always say that we should love our country. However, you are destroying the traditional culture of China. Don't you feel ashamed? A flower will not bloom for 1,000 days, and even government officials may one day become prisoners. I think you should also be prepared yourself. I'm talking about certain senior government officials. Now, if you want to start a universal retirement protection scheme, you only need a seed money of $50 billion. And this is something that people deserve because they have been working very hard for society. And now you are saying that you will first set up a future fund. And what's the use of that? I think the SAR government really only listens to the central authorities, and they just cannot do anything to benefit Hong Kong people, and Hong Kong will soon end. Mr. Chiu Si Poon from Universal Retirement Protection Concern Group. My name is Chiu Si Poon. I'm 88 years old. I have been fighting for more than 10 years for universal retirement protection. I hope that I can lead a better life, and I also hope that the younger generations can benefit. Old age living allowance has been implemented for more than a year. However, there are a lot of problems. The government wants to alleviate poverty, but that amount is not enough. And if you want to show your respect to the elderly, the amount is so small. And there are means tests. So somebody can get it, somebody do not. So are we going to compete among ourselves, see who is poorer? So now the government is not doing enough for the people. The elderly are required to undergo means tests if they want to receive benefits from the government. While Chinese people attach a lot of importance to filial piety, but means tests will bring about a lot of arguments in families. When people get old, well, they have already made a lot of contribution to society. So when they retire, they should lead a dignified life. They do not have income after retirement. So the government should set up a universal retirement scheme without means test, so that the elderly can enjoy a good retirement life. And also means tests have brought about a lot of disputes in family. If the government does away with the means test, harmonies will be more harmonious. Other than implementing a universal retirement scheme without means test, the government should also adopt a new scheme in which three parties are making contributions. They include the government, the employers, and the employees. We are facing this huge problem of aging population, so the government should implement a universal retirement scheme as soon as possible. And the whole society should bear the burden together. And somebody say that if there is a universal retirement scheme, then Mr. Lee Ka-sing can also get the benefits. But Mr. Lee Ka-sing has also made contribution to society, so he should have the right to enjoy such benefits. As to whether he really apply for the benefits is another matter. At least he has the right to do that. We have been fighting for universal retirement protection for a very long time. The government shouldn't allow the elderly to suffer anymore. We want to see an early implementation. There have been so many disputes in our families. And I would like to supplement. Three-party contribution is the right thing to do, and this will make the system sustainable. It would even help the government. It doesn't only help the public. Thank you. Grassroots Chair Lady, Ms. Lee Choi Kwan. She's not here yet. Concerned Group of Women Poverty, Executive Committee Member, Ms. Chang Yim Hwa. Good afternoon. I speak on behalf of the concerned group of women poverty. Please allow me to make 3 points in front of the government officials. Universal retirement protection has been dragging its legs. The government has never really realized it. We hope that the government can implement universal retirement protection as soon as possible, because we have made a lot of contribution to society. So for those who over the age of 65, they should enjoy a government's pension so that they can lead a dignified retirement life. Now, this has already been done in mainland China. Hong Kong is a democratic society. How come this is not done? For China's advantages, how come you are not learning from them? And also, housewives should also be protected. Housewives have made a lot of effort to keep their family running. They have spent their whole life making contribution to their families. So when they get old, they should be sufficiently protected. And also, the welfare policy for elderly should also be changed. For example, people reaching the age of 60 should be able to enjoy traffic expenses discount. And I know a person who's just retired and he has to rely on his MPF accrued benefits. However, he has to visit doctors all the time, so that money is really not enough. He just say that, well, after I spent all my money on doctors, I will just die. Well, isn't the government sympathetic to those people? The government should come up with a comprehensive policy so that the people are protected. This is what I want to share with you. Thank you. Sherman Elderly Joint Group Organization Representative Lee Kun Hao. I would like to share my views with you, and I speak on behalf of the elders living in Tsuen Wan. Now we want to fight for the benefits for the elderly. There are so many senior government officials here. Well, you can enjoy your pensions. However, we are just grassrooters. In particular, I'm a housewife. Well, for housewives, and they are young, they have also made contribution to society. They keep their family running. So when they get old, they also want to live a dignified life. Last year, an old age living allowance of $2,200 was launched for the elderly. However, this is not universal. The applicants have to go through a means test. Just now, an elderly speaker said that this has brought about a lot of disputes in families. So there are a lot of problems. If there are several sons and daughters in a family, they would pass the buck to each other. And the elderly person may even be abandoned by his sons and daughters. There are a lot of arguments, etc. And some elders are illiterate. When the government issues documents to them, they may not be able to understand the government's policies, and they are asked to sign documents. This is really problematic. And it's very difficult for some elders to understand these government documents. the government has a huge surplus in its coffers. So the government has an unshakable responsibility to ensure that its people enjoy a dignified life. Now, everybody will get old. Government officials can have pensions after they retire. However, that's not true for everybody. And when you get old, you have to go to hospitals all the time, and healthcare expenses is also a huge problem.
So I hope that we can keep up with the good tradition of providing for the elderly. We should show our respect for the elderly, and we should not just have 1 or 2 days in a year to show our respect. We should make it normal course of life, and therefore we should have universal retirement protection implemented as soon as possible. We don't want the government to continue to stall in this investigation and study stage. I have joined this fight for universal protection for almost 10 years. And yet the administration will say that they have commissioned a certain study by a professor. So you must act quickly. We can afford to wait because aging population is a serious problem. Of course, we don't know what will happen in the future. And thank you. I think your time is up. Thank you very much. So these are our aspirations. Thank you. Ms. Yu Chun-mui from the Elderly Social Concern Alliance. Mr. Zhang and members of the subcommittee, good afternoon. The purpose of my coming to this subcommittee hearing is, whether you are elected to this council or not. Now, Mr. Matthew Chung, I hope you can shoulder some responsibility, because every time I can hear from you is stalling. You have never given us a timetable for implementation, so you keep stalling. Every time we go away disappointed. We are now over 80 years old. How many people can live beyond 80 years old? I may not be able to get it myself, but if I can have this undertaking from you that by the end of next year there will be retirement universal protection, then I will be happy to, even if I would pass away tomorrow. You should not adopt this couldn't care less attitude. You want to protect your rice bowl. You won't have a dialogue with people like me who are grassroots and old. You don't care for us at all. You have no care for us. You do not practice what you preach. We have never seen any sign of friendliness from you. So we want you to do a better job in taking care of the elderly. When we slip, we hope you can give us a lift, and rather than leaving us to die. This is not fair because sooner or later you also grow old. So why don't you implement universal retirement protection? Why don't you do something to help us? All you care is your own rice bowl and your own pocket. You don't care whether we have water to drink when we are thirsty. Now, this is not the right way to do things. You cannot just wait for your wages without taking care of our needs. You are also you're all very selfish. You only care for yourself. When we are so poor, when we can barely keep body and soul together, you wouldn't care. You won't even look at us. Thank you. Your time is up. Well, I can go on for another 3 hours. Mr. Lee Sai-hong, New Democrats. Thank you. I am Lee Sai-hong from New Democrats. Well, the administration like to talk about the 3-pillar protection: voluntary savings, non-contributory social security system, MPF. But then these are no protection at all. MPF, we have the offsetting arrangement of LSP and SP, and housing costs is high and wages are low. Workers can not really rely on their own savings and MPF for retirement protection. Well, the World Bank has got this multi-pillar model, but OALA is means tested, and even the spouse of the applicant has to go through the means test. It will further polarize elderly persons of different sectors. And the OALA has only been adjusted by 3.8% to 2,285. It can hardly catch up with inflation. This so-called 3-pillar protection is just the ling tactic employed by the government. John Zhang proposed earlier on that there will be less one-off relief measures, and a future fund will be set up to set aside fiscal reserves to cater for a rainy day. I think he is just playing tricks with our finances. He wants to bypass LegCo without being accountable to the public. Will the future fund be another major events fund, or just a fund for the XRL? We should set up a tripartite contributory system as soon as possible to cater for our aging population. The administration has no commitment for retirement protection of our elderly persons. New Democrats is of the will that to tackle this problem, we must put in place universal retirement protection as soon as possible. The government should do it within this term, and there should be a $50 billion fund set aside for seed money, so that we can also have a timetable and a blueprint for this. Thank you. Ms. Cheng Xiu-Yang from Youth Concerned Elderly Poverty East Association. Good afternoon. I am an undergraduate student graduating quite soon. Now, according to LP, the post-80 generation can support their parents. As one who is graduating soon, I don't think I can do this I can't do this. My research project is on working poverty. A new graduate may get $11,000 per month. They pay $3,000 to their parents, and savings $3,000 and $3,000 on daily expenses. You ask us to support our parents. Is $3,000 enough for them, for their daily necessities? There should be a tripartite contribution system, so that the government and also from employers and also a large consortia should also contribute 1% of their salaries, of their profits. I think that would be better than asking the younger generation to support their own parents. and we have to pay pensions for elderly, for retired civil servants, and I think it only fair. I don't know whether if you have really read my submission. Now you say that if even the rich can get this protection, it is not fair. But then large consortia will pay 1% of their profits tax to this fund. This can then redistribute wealth. And according to a Chura study, this scheme is sustainable. And if young people are required to contribute, we have to do that for our MPF accounts. I may as well support my parents. If you really care for the elders in society, you won't have played electronic games in a council meeting. Now, when the elders were speaking, Mr. Dominic Lee was playing mobile phone games. All right, he's still playing, doesn't matter. Journalists will take pictures of him. I respect his right to play Puzzle and Dragon, but I will talk about the remarks by LP representatives. Now, they're against the earn-as-you-pay system or pay-as-you-earn system. Well, they may have a point. Of course, you want money to go to those genuinely in need. In fact, most of the systems we are asking is not an pay-as-you-earn system. It is a contributory system. Those who have means should pay more. Those who can't afford as much should pay less, so that they can get the very basic retirement protection. So this is a partial saving scheme. Are there really schemes that go by the pay-as-you-earn system? Well, the ADPL has got, or the Civic Party has, the Civic Power has got a similar system, and the LP challenged the viability of this scheme. Perhaps you should consider Professor Nelson Chow's proposal. I think the Civic Power is not the only one to propose this. Even in LP's election platform, they have got similar proposals. If you're against the pay-as-you-earn system, you should first abolish your own proposals. You should not attack similar proposals by other political parties. So we must clarify the academic issues. And I don't know why all of a sudden LP is so hostile to the rich. They don't want Li Ka-shing to get retirement protection. In fact, Li Ka-shing is required to pay profits tax. It is okay to give him retirement protection if he has paid profits tax. Now, if you're so hostile to the rich, then you should not ask for tax cuts, and you should also oppose free education and medical services for the rich. So I hope that LP can really respect the public and respect the elderly persons in the community. Thank you. Ms. Chow Kit-ying, Chairperson of Sunshine Po Community Association. Good afternoon. I think community organizations are asking for universal retirement protection, yet the government is always stalling. Zhang Zhang has recently led a working group on long-term fiscal planning. He claims that our population is aging rapidly. In 20 years' time, all our reserves will have been depleted and we will go bankrupt. So they propose to set up a future fund to set aside reserves for our future. Well, this sounds great. We think that everyone can share the fund. No, Mr. Zhang has vaguely said that the money will be spent on infrastructure. What has infrastructure got to do with retirement protection? Now, according to the paper, they have not gone to B4 level of the XRL, and then there is also overrun of construction costs. So we've been misled. This so-called future fund will only serve the rich. It will only save up money so that the construction sector and also the consortia can continue to rob us of our money. Do you think that with this future fund, elderly persons can live better lives? They can be better fed? I don't know what our senior officers are thinking. And
well, for this universal retirement protection, it should be paid by three parties: government, employers, and employees. We are not asking all the employers or all the young people or the government to pay for everything. It should be contributed by three parties. And I would also like to ask about MPF. MPF cannot protect us. And I would like to talk to the Liberal Party. Well, you definitely will support MPF. Why? Because for the offsetting arrangements under the MPF system, it is like that I'm saving up money so that my employer can fire me. Well, that would be very good for a businessman, because when you fire your employee, you do not have to pay them, because the employees will pay themselves with the MPF contributions. Now think about it. MPF will not be able to help us. Only universal retirement protection can help everybody. Only that is fair. I'm not saying that among those who are very poor are in greatest need. Well, for some elders, because they have a small amount of saving, they cannot rely on CSSA, but they dare not spend money on food and they dare not go to see doctors. So you should really think twice. Next, Tin Shui Wei Elderly Welfare Union, Ms. Mok Siu Man. Now, if universal retirement protection scheme is requiring us to support other people's parents, then what is free education doing? Are we viewing educating the young people as an investment, but supporting the elders as a burden? Elders have also made a lot of contribution to our society. Maybe in the early years they just had very low income, so that's why they couldn't have saved enough money, and they really cannot fight inflation. And the poverty rate of elderly is as high as 33.9%. That is, for every 3 elders, 1 is living in poverty. So what has the government done for them? Please don't mention the old age living allowance or the elderly CSSA. They are not beneficial for all. The elderly have to go through means test. And the means test is very problematic. The administrative fee is high. The test is very complicated, and also a stigmatization, and it also makes our society divided. So the elders who are in greatest need do not benefit. But by implementing a universal retirement protection, everybody can benefit. There should be no means test, and every elderly person can enjoy the benefits. This is a basic right. we should ensure that all the elders can lead a reasonable life. They should enjoy their basic human rights. They should live in a dignified manner. And the MPF system is designed for the middle class. It would not benefit all the elders. According to the Census and Statistics Department, for the population between 20 and 64 is 4.9 million, but only 3.7 million of them are working and 3.4 million of them are in the MPF system. So it's only 69%. And 700,000 housewives are not protected. People with disabilities, the unemployed, they are not protected at all. And also the financial market is very volatile and people's money may be lost any time. So we urge the government to set up a universal retirement protection as soon as possible so that our elderly do not have to be scavengers on the streets. Next, insured by Community Development Alliance, Ms. Zhang Xiuqing. Well, we have been talking about universal retirement protection for a long time, but it has never been implemented. A lot of organizations has put forward a number of proposals, but the government has never done anything. I would like to ask Mr. Matthew Cheung, at the last meeting, how come you were not here? The secretary was not sincere in communicating with us. Some political parties would think that they represent all the young people. Actually, they are not respecting young people. They think they can speak on their behalf, and that's not true. The baby boomers are now getting older, and we must seize this opportunity. Otherwise, we cannot tackle the problem of aging population. So has the secretary heard the voices of the people? If you don't have time to listen to the people, why are you a public officer? And if you don't have time to attend public hearings like this, do you think you can really understand the people? And a lady who has reached the age of 58 told me, she said that she's been working in various fields. She's been working since she was a teenager. She has never stopped. It's only because she didn't have money. She sacrificed her whole youth for Hong Kong. And what is Hong Kong returning to her? Now she still have to work for her son. And also healthcare expenses are very high. Although this old lady is half blind, she still has to wash dishes in a restaurant. I think we really have to think twice. This old lady has been working so hard for Hong Kong, and Hong Kong's economy took off. She made a lot of sacrifices. However, she cannot lead a comfortable retirement life. Filial piety is very important in Chinese culture, but Hong Kong government is doing things against this. Well, let us not talk about filial piety. It's too great. We should all be compassionate, and when we look at this old lady, we should feel sympathetic. They are helpless. They don't know what will happen in the future. Mencius said that everybody should have a conscience. Hong Kong government, Hong Kong officials, well, are they human beings? Secretary, are you a human being? A comfortable retirement life is human right. Teacher White Retirement Protection Group, Ms. Chen Carmen. In the past few months, I've been talking to the Kai Fong of Tin Shui Wai about retirement. Some of them say that they will have to rely on their monthly salaries, their savings. Some say that they will rely on stock, on investments. But are these feasible methods? The MTR raises its fares every year, and the public estate shopping malls are now sold to the link. The shops are selling goods at a much higher price. So how can these people catch up with the inflation? Some Kaifeng told me that, well, when they get old, nobody would hire them. They want to be hawkers, but there's no place for them to hawk. They want to be self-reliant, but can that be done? They can only barely make ends meet. Well, these people have been working hard for Hong Kong for 3 decades, 4 decades. They have made a lot of contributions. They have now 20 to 30 remaining years to live. They just want to lead a comfortable retirement life. Are they asking for too much? They have sacrificed their whole lives to Hong Kong. Well, no matter whether they were workers or housewives, they have made contribution to society. We just want the Hong Kong government to give Hong Kong people a dignified retirement life. Isn't the government responsible for that? We want to reiterate this. We are not saying that people should lead a luxurious life after their retirement, but we just don't want people to be worried after their retirement. And when they are 60s, when they are 70s, they do not have to worry about their livelihood. Well, the financial markets is volatile. Even though people plan carefully for their retirement, there are still a lot of risks in the financial market. We have worked hard to make our money, but now our money is put in the volatile financial markets. Can the government guarantee that when we retire, we would not face a poor economy? Is the government handing the people's retirement life to destiny? Now, if Hong Kong has universal retirement protection, then we don't have to be so worried. We can lead a dignified life after retirement, and the government does not have to spend extra resources on means tests. So universal retirement protection is the only way out. Next, Hong Kong Christian Institute, Mr. Tang Wing-Fai. Just now, I was listening to some old ladies. Well, some people may think that their remarks are laughable, but actually it's very sad. Now, why are the elders here today fighting for their rights? What is happening to our society? Shouldn't they be spending a comfortable retirement life at home or in parks? Why should they come to such boring meetings? For retirement protection, actually, it is related to human rights. Why is that? Because human rights means people's dignity. When an elder lives in poverty, it is not just about income. They cannot lead a dignified life. Now, if you look at the ICCPR and the minutes of their meetings, you would know that the elders should have the right to housing, the right to health, the right to independent living, and the right to die in a dignified manner. So can our elders do that? Of course, we should also look at the living standard of that place. But when we look at the living standard of the general public in Hong Kong, we would know that many elders are living an inferior life. We should also look at overseas examples. When people retire, the monthly income would be 60% or 70% of what they made before retirement. Can Hong Kong do that? The Hong Kong government has been talking about 3 pillars. The World Bank is now advocating 5 pillars, and we lack the first and the fourth pillar. The first pillar is universal retirement protection, and the fourth pillar is non-official and non-pecuniary supports, including healthcare and welfare. So for the fourth pillar, that would also include family support, and actually that's getting less and less in Hong Kong. So the government should implement universal retirement protection as soon as possible so that these 5 pillars can be built. Thank you. Next, Catholic Diocese of Hong Kong Diocesan Pastoral Center for Workers, Hong Kong Island, Ms. Chiang Lai Shan.
Thank you, Chairman. This is such a boring subject. Some elders there are some elders here, and as well as young men. I started this fight when I was young, and now I am also already a granny. I am worried that I won't be able to contribute to this fund. Is retirement protection a human right? Now, we like to talk about aging nowadays. Is aging something bad? What's wrong with aging? It's all because the government has not done anything to cater for our aging population. If in the 1970s or 80s we had already started to set up a central provident fund or universal retirement protection, if we had started back then, there is no need for us to start the discussion from scratch, because we don't even know when such a system can be introduced. So elders are considered a heavy burden on society, and this is entirely not fair. As I said, it is natural for people to grow old. And even if we have universal retirement protection, is it a solution to poverty? This is questionable. Universal retirement protection may not necessarily resolve poverty. We're only saying that this is a fundamental right for both in the workforce and those without. Now, if we can see it in this light, there is no excuse for the government not to introduce such a system. Now, regarding the OALA, OH living allowance, many elders I know are worried that they have to go through a means test. Now, if we can have universal retirement protection, we can be free of this worry. And by the time we reach retirement, we can choose to use or to claim universal retirement protection or not. And we've also got workers and women in our center. Many of them are not working full-time, so they are not contributing to any MPF. They can only rely on their family for retirement. Again, this is not fair. As mentioned in the 2014 policy address, some workers would like a tripartite contribution of retirement protection, operating something like the I-bond. So can we operate our retirement fund in the same manner? Thank you. Ms. Leung Wai-ching from the Alliance for Concern of Women's Rights. Thank you. We're always concerned about the rights of women. Now, women are homemakers, and are they sufficiently protected? We ask for immediate implementation of universal retirement protection to cater for housewives when they grow old. However, the government has been dragging its feet, refusing to give any commitment. Now, for women, they have no protection at all under the 3 pillars. First, MPF. Homemakers have to take care of their family. They are very busy. They don't have any rest time. They have no actual income. They don't have any MPF account. They may want to work full-time or part-time to save some money for their retirement. There aren't sufficient childcare or elderly services, so such housewives can only work part-time so that they can, in parallel, take care of their kids or families. So they won't earn a lot, and their contribution to MPF accounts will be peanuts, and therefore then benefits are useless for their future retirement. So we should take care of housewives. And second, the other pillar is voluntary private savings. As I said, many homemakers have to take care of kids at home. They can only work part-time and low-income jobs. So they earn the statutory minimum wage. After deducting travel expenses, they have little to spare. I think looking after your own home is just like any kind of labor. So housewives should be just as well protected. The government may say that they can apply for CSS in the future. However, there is stigmatization attached to CSSA. Well, it's just like our population policy. We want women to join the workforce, but there is no undertaking to support them. And in the policy address, or rather in the budget, there is this only very vague future fund. There is no sincerity on the part of the government to help homemakers or housewives. It has overlooked the needs of some members of our public. Therefore, the government should legislate as soon as possible to put in place a universal retirement protection system to give recognition to the contribution of housewives. So we urge the administration to set up a non-means tested universal retirement protection with contributions from employers, employees, and the government. The government should come up with a roadmap and a blueprint as soon as possible, in particular after Professor Chow has published his report. Mr. Augustine Yu from Catholic Diocese of Hong Kong Diocesan Pastoral Center for Workers, NT. Well, somebody was playing Puzzle and Dragon here just now, and I came up from the internet a sermon by the Pope in 2014. And the Catholic Church is asking us to take care of our brothers and sisters. It is our duty to ensure that there is nothing in this world that is discriminatory or against the human dignity, because if power and money have become our idols, then we must ensure that our conscience will not be blinded. Well, as said by many speakers, elders are poor, and this is about human dignity. We should not overlook the need for human dignity. Now, I have an elderly friend who's sick. He lives in a village in Fanling. He has to scavenge dustbins at night, not to recycle resources, but to look for food. And if we have elders doing this to feed themselves, how can you continue to play Puzzle and Dragon on your phone? All right, we have OALA, we have CSSA, and some may claim DA as well, but these are not sufficient for everyone in society. And I don't know whether some of us here have read proposals from the community Professor Nelson Chow's report will be published next month. There is no need for us to jump the queue. Professor Chow has been commissioned by the government, and I don't think he will come up with a report rashly. Universal protection is not just a solution to poverty among the elderly. Rather, it is about labor rights. If we don't care for people's retirement, there is no need for people to contribute to MPF, because this is a basic labor right. If we don't care about fairness and sustainability, it's useless to talk about other things. Yes, our population is aging, and protection for our grassroots workers is also insufficient, and therefore setting up such a fund or such a system is an urgent matter. Thank you. Mr. Simon Tam from the New Territories Evangelical Ambassador. John Tsang announced his budget sometime in March, and there is nothing in the budget to cater for the long-term needs of our elderly persons and our labor force. We're told that 7 years afterwards we will have deficit, and we should spend $220 billion on a future fund. In fact, the future fund is to cater for possible budget overrun of the 10 major infrastructure projects. We have hundreds of thousands of elders in the community. And if they want to apply for OALA, they have to go through a means test, which is very cumbersome. And it also gives rise to family disharmony, and the underprivileged and the elderly cannot benefit. The disabled and housewives do not have any MPF protection, and low-income earners, they don't get enough support from MPF as well. There are many jobs already outsourced. This applies to the government as well. So contracts are usually retendered once every 2-3 years. If an employer cannot get his tender renewed or contract renewed, he will have to sack his workers. Under the offsetting arrangements, a little will be left in these workers' MPF accounts. So how can MPF cater for people's retirement? If we have universal protection, then this problem is solved. We have over 1 million elders, and this will rise to 2-3 million in the future. Now you get $2,285 in OALA in 2020, perhaps you may get $35,000. This have to be paid by the government. The government will increase taxes, and this will not be supported by the businesses. There are many proposals from political parties and community organizations. We should certainly study them, because they ask for tripartite contribution, and there is no need for the business sector to make another contribution, and all social welfare, social security payments can be put into the fund. So even rich people will have to pay to the fund, and in future elders will get at least $3,000, and high-income earners, they can make use of their savings for investment, and they can live more comfortably. The government should implement the system as soon as possible so that our elderly persons can live happily in the future. Thank you. Mr. Chen Chi Kit from Shuanghui CSU. All right. The friend who has been playing Puzzle and Dragon, I'd like to know whether he's always listening to things in a selective manner. Now, you are certainly from the post-80 generation, when elders will talk about their plight Did you choose to listen or not? If with elders are already 90 or 80 years old and they have to come out to fight for their own benefit or welfare, and we have a young man who thinks that these people are unrealistic. Now, if young people would only support their own parents and not other elder persons, well, Mr. Lui Ting-ming of Hong Kong UST once talked about pay-as-you-earn retirement protection system.
He objected to universal retirement protection. He talked about aging population and that creates pressure for society. However, he thinks universal retirement protection cannot solve all the problems. Just now, the extreme example of Greeks was mentioned. But there are some other countries that have successfully implemented universal retirement protection schemes. Some speakers have mentioned this as well. Why am I saying all this? I want to tell Mr. Lee, when I go to school, my teacher taught me not to cite only the examples that would support my arguments. I should include all examples. Now I would like to talk about the people in poverty in Shangshui. We have been to Choyun village, and there were many elders living there, and they would spend their time in parks. We talked to them, and there was this elderly lady. Well, she started working in her 20s, and now she is in her 80s. Her last job was a dishwasher, and she was in her 60s when she did that. So she was 60-something, so how come she was still working as a dishwasher? Because she didn't have a protected retirement life. You know that if you wash dishes, you have to sit all day, and her legs are now crooked, and she's not capable of walking, and now she's old, she is immobile. She also has some other sicknesses. So shouldn't we have a better safety net so that when the elders retire, they can have sufficient protection? I know that some other friends will also supplement for me. Thank you. North District Outsourcing Cleaning Workers Concerned Group, Ms. Lau Hoi Man. Good afternoon. I would like to tell you more about the cleaning workers in North District. In the past few months, I have been in contact with them and asked them, when you retire, what's your plan? And many workers would say that as long as that's, well, I cannot retire because I need to work for my food. Well, it seems very exaggerating, but is that so? Now they are making $7,440 per month. That's the statutory minimum wage. How can they save money? They can barely feed themselves. And in their MPF accounts, I think most of the amount has been offset. So how can they have a protected retirement life? Now, in Hong Kong, we do not have a good retirement system. And the MPF system does not cover everybody. The housewives, people with disabilities are excluded. Even for workers who have made contributions to MPF, they would say that the accrued benefits cannot keep them living after retirement. So they have to work again, and some of them have to apply for CSSA, or they have to rely on old age living allowance. So the government is trying to plug the MPF loopholes with taxes, and that gives rise to more problems. Well, our cleaning workers are not asking for a luxurious retirement life. They just want to live peacefully, but they cannot do that. We just want them to have an adequate living standard. And also, retirement protection schemes should be universal because all Hong Kong people have made contribution to our society. This is their right. And the means test should not be used because it will stigmatize people. So for the cleaning workers and the security guards in North District, they are very concerned about universal retirement protection. They want their views heard, but they are working now, so they cannot come to this public hearing. So together we have made this card. The workers may not be very expressive in writing, but they have put down some words and they have also drawn some faces. These are angry faces. They are angry at the poor retirement system right now, and some of these faces are crying because they are worried about their retirement, because in 8 to 10 years time many of them will be retiring. They dare not dream about their retirement. Some speakers said just now the young people do not want to support other people's parents. I was born in the 90s. And I am here speaking on behalf of the outsourcing clinic workers. We hope that the government can implement a universal retirement protection without means test as soon as possible. Thank you. Next, Shed Wu Hui Housing Problem Concern Group, Mr. Chong Shang Wei. Shanghai Shed Wu Hui, we always talk to the tenants of subdivided flats, trying to find whether they face any problems. And also we talked some time ago, we talked to some elderly people. They said that they didn't know how to fill in the blue form applying for old age living allowance, and some of them couldn't even read. So we fill in the forms for them. Well, they had to rely on the old age living allowance for their food and for their transport, etc. I remember I was talking to them at 5 or 6 p.m. and the old lady said that she had to rush to take her $10 meal at the community center. And also after her meal, she also had to deliver a dinner box to her husband. And I asked how come the couple didn't go together. Well, actually the old man, the old gentleman was working. He was collecting carton boxes on the street. So each day they would have 2 meals, and that was just one example of an elderly couple. We know that by 2039, among every 4 persons, there would be 1 elder. So the aging population problem would only aggravate. Now, can the 3 pillars solve the problems for the elders after their retirement? They have been working for so many years, but they can barely make ends meet. After they retire, they have to go to NGO canteens to take $10 meals. Now, some parents are supported by their children. Well, for this couple I mentioned, they have children, but well, this couple lives in Jiangxi and the children live in Tongchong. So the children cannot visit them all the time. And the children are not too willing to give them money. So you can imagine what their life is like. So our group, Shed Wu Hui Housing Problem Concern Group, asked the government to implement universal retirement protection as soon as possible. There should not be any means test and there should not be any classification, so that the elderly can lead a dignified retirement life. Thank you, Mr. Chong. Next, well, I would like to thank all the deputations for sharing their views with us. And now Mr. Matthew Cheung will respond, and then I will give the floor to members. I would like to thank the deputations for giving us useful opinions. Well, you can see that there are different views concerning this issue. However, we are not evading the problem. This term of government is very serious about it. and the Commission on Poverty is conducting a comprehensive study on this issue. We have invited Professor Nelson Chung to take the lead. He is an expert in retirement protection. He's objective and he's has high esteem. In the past few months, experts have spent a lot of time contacting different political parties, community organizations, and stakeholders. He has also held a number of public hearings and focus groups were set up. We hope that by the end of June, a report can be submitted to the COP, Retirement Subcommittee. The subcommittee will take an in-depth look into the report and it will decide on the way forward. And the Subcommittee on Retirement Protection and LegCo has also asked whether they can see this report. Well, we will definitely follow up on that. Well, for retirement protection, it's a very complicated issue, but we attach a lot of importance to it. So now we have adopted an open and pragmatic attitude when we handle this. And I would like to respond to certain questions just now. Well, a speaker asked how come I didn't attend the last meeting. Well, I've told Ms. Chen and Mr. Zhang, and that meeting was held on a Tuesday morning. But on Tuesday morning, I had to attend the EXCO meeting, and EXCO meetings cannot be rescheduled. I couldn't attend two meetings at the same time. So I talked to Ms. Chen and Mr. Chung. They are very understanding, so that's why today's meeting is rescheduled to the afternoon. I am very willing to listen to your views. And on Friday, I will be meeting some other organizations at the central government offices. So I would like to listen to them and have conversations with them. And you talked about old age living allowance. How come there's only an increase of 3.6% and it's not even as high as the inflation rate? Now, it was launched in December. So for CSSA, old age allowance, and disability allowance, the timetable is of a 12-month round. So when we increase the old age living allowance, it's not 12 months yet, so we only increase it to 3.6%. But for the next round, we will follow the normal cycle. It's just about different starting points. And for your views, they will be relayed to the steering committee, and I believe that Professor Nelson Chen would definitely be looking at your views. Thank you. Now I'll give the floor to members. 3 members have raised their hands. Albert Ho, Poon Siu Ping, Lam Kwok Hong. Anyone else wants to speak? If not, I'll ask the 3 members to speak first. Each member will be given 5 minutes. Mr. Albert Ho. Thank you, Chairman. I'm grateful that the deputations attend today's public hearing. This is not the first public hearing that we hold. We always want to hear the public's view on retirement protection. The Democratic Party supports the implementation of universal retirement protection. Some deputations objected to this, in particular the 4 representatives from the Liberal Party. They made a number of points to object to this. And some deputations argued with them. I do not want to respond to those points one by one. Maybe Lee Chi-kin or some other representatives would like to respond later. That's fairer. But that's a point that I would like to highlight. Lei Chi-king was very passionate when he spoke. He said that how come I'm asked to support other people's parents? I'm a young person. It's only right that I support my own parents. How come I am asked to support other people's parents? Well, this is not music to the ear. Well, as a citizen, there are poor people in our society. Then through paying tax, why can't there be reallocation of resources so that the poor people can be taken care of, so that other people's parents can be supported? I think this is reasonable. You can say that you do not like this taxation regime, but why were you so passionate when we said that? I would think that young people are more compassionate. You would say that you want to take care of the elderly. I expected to hear that, but it's just the opposite. Now, for universal retirement protection, there is one very important point, but the speakers have not mentioned it today. It's about the universality.
This is about the rights and obligations of a citizen. It will give you a sense of identity and belonging to a society. Since we have made money, we should pay taxes. It's just a form. You can regard it as a kind of tax to support everyone in society, so that everyone in society, including yourself, can enjoy this very equal right, so that people don't have to be labeled as being poor and requiring care. In many economies, this is a recognition of a person's citizenship is a right. Our medical system is just the same. Let's not refer to Mr. Li Ka-shing. Will not object to his visiting public hospital. I have seen rather rich people receiving care and treatment in public hospitals. I appreciate that. If they would like to have public medical health care services, what's wrong? And that people who still claim OAA even though they are billionaires, I don't think that they are wrong, because after all, that's their rights. It is a symbol of their citizenship. I think this is social investment. This is to give ourselves identity. There are many people who are not economically active and they're not respected at all. For instance, housewives. Homemaking is very strenuous, but housewives are not rewarded, and they have to stay home to work, and they have breadwinners at home. And that's why many countries are for universal retirement protection. I wanted to give time to Mr. Dominic Lee to respond, perhaps later. I think he will have time to respond later. Mr. Lee? After we have completed this round, I'll certainly give time for guests to speak again. All right, Mr. Pan Xiaoping. I thank deputations and individuals for them to come to tell us their views. I'll give time to the LP representatives to respond. Now, they talk about a reasonable protection. They talk about fairness and sustainability. So they have vetoed the tripartite contributory model of universal retirement protection. I'd like to know whether they have done any actuarial assessment of this model before they reject it. And my question for Mr. Matthew Cheung is, Professor Nelson Chow's report will be available by the end of June, and we can then discuss it. Well, the government may claim that it has an open mind, but this is also a social problem. We have talked about social retirement protection for a long time, and we cannot drag our feet anymore. I'd like to ask the administration whether it has got any time frame in mind. We very much want to have a proposal within this year for thorough discussion in society so that we can resolve this problem as soon as possible. Mr. Cheung, timetable. As I said, by end of June, Professor Nelson Chow will submit a report to a task force, which will read the report in great details before deciding on the way forward. Of course, I would include giving a report to LegCo, and because it is a social issue, the public will also be interested. So we will deal with it very seriously. After the task force has received the report, it will study it very carefully, but your view will be reflected to the task force. So you don't have an idea as to when a model will be proposed in the third quarter or last quarter. Well, we have 4 members in the Commission on Poverty, including Mr. Chong Kwok-Chu. So I think the 4 legislators sitting on the Commission will monitor our work. All right, I'll give time to the Liberal Party representatives. Thank you, members, for giving me time. First, Mr. Albert Ho asked why we are rather reluctant to support parents of other people's parents. Well, I love my parents. They have sacrificed a lot for me, and I believe it is an unshakable responsibility for me to look after my own parents. Since I have this feeling when I see other people trying to shirk this responsibility to other members of the community, I feel rather angry. Yes, not everyone can be well off. Myself, including myself, I can just make ends meet. Now, I don't have to support my parents, but I do contribute to my parents financially. I have to, there is certainly give and take. When I financially support my parents, I have to give up some of my own pleasures. I think this is a right sacrifice to be made by all children for the sake of their parents. Secondly, for elders in need, as a young man, I have no objection to paying tax or using social resources to provide resources for them. The question is, the proposal now, which is a universal retirement protection, doesn't target elders in genuine need. If we have a system that can really target those in need, I believe many young people, including myself, will not mind using taxes we pay to help them. Thirdly, many people are of the view that universal retirement protection is a right. However, the problem with our society is we have make many things our rights, even though they didn't used to be. For instance, I think it is a right for everyone to live within a certain, not beyond a certain quality. However, using taxpayers' money to subsidize them on a monthly basis is not a right. I think there are guests who would like to respond. You can raise your hands if you so wish, and after members have asked questions, I will come back to you. Okay. Mr. Leung Kwok Hong. Well, the LP is really young and capable. When I had an election debate with Mr. James Tan, he said that please don't think that wealthy people are asking the government for money. In fact, the rich have paid taxes to the government. It doesn't matter. And for poor people, they have not bought properties. They have not contributed to the economy. They have not paid tax. They should not ask for anything from the government. If they so wish, it should be after the rich has asked the government for what they want. Well, I gave him 1 minute to elaborate, but he didn't. Yes, some rights would gradually emerge. When I was a kid, our right was 6 years of primary education, but now the general or the universal right here is 15 years of free education. Well, those the economists are human beings. I think it is in the general interest for everyone to be decently protected. And in this world, a person cannot survive if he has not labored at all, unless he is very, very lazy. Well, he may work in his family. He is contributing to the society. For instance, if housewives do not teach their kids at home, their kids may become delinquent, and we need more prisons to lock them up in the future. In Hong Kong, we want to ensure that everyone in Hong Kong can get $3,000 in after they've retired, to give them very basic protection. Now, I am not really scolding you. I'm just discussing with you. Supporting other people's parents. Now, if a person doesn't have enough surplus money to support his parents. Now, it's just like buying Social Security. In Germany, if you cannot afford social insurance, the government will do it for you. It's very fair. Now, I want to target my questions at Matthew Cheung. Tomorrow, I will filibuster. And I know you will say that you will consider this very cautiously, prudently. Well, you have a future fund now of $220 billion. You say that because of the aging population, we may not be able to continue to build white elephants, and our economy may suffer. I commend you for daring to say that. Well, you are going to spend $220 billion on that fund. I'm asking for $50 billion. So you want to enjoy a big feast. I'm just asking you to eat a few dishes left, a few dishes less. I'm not asking for $220 billion, but $50 billion. You call me radical. I have not talked to the deputations beforehand. I haven't had a prior discussion with Dominic Lee. Well, is it because you are unwilling to do it? Well, if you don't have money, I can give you the money. LegCo can give you the money. If you doesn't have the will to do it, I will filibuster until you are willing. You can ask the Communist Party and also the Global Journal to help you, but it's useless because you will be punished if you don't take care of the elderly. I used paper money from the Bank of Hell to hurl at the financial sector. No matter how you attack me, it's useless. I'm going to filibuster. Thank you. Mr. Frederick Yick. Thank you. In fact, Mr. Frankie Yick, thank you. I have another meeting. I have nothing special to say, but then there is a representative from the academic for universal pension. I think there is a misunderstanding. Yes, LP agrees that there should be a means test for OALA. However, the government's ceiling is too low. It should be raised to $500,000 so that even elders with some savings can enjoy OALA. I think the speaker has distorted my remarks. Thank you. All right. Any more members who would like to speak? No? Then I will give the floor to the guests. I'll read out the names. Chen Hopfeng, Lau Chuk Kei, Yu Shifu, Yang Ho Chun. Anyone more? Chao Kit Yin. And in the front, Miss Yu Chun Mui. And then still in the front, Mr. Leung Kao-wai and Miss Zhang Chut-yu.
Chen Hopfeng.
Chen Hopfeng first. Sorry, some other members may like to speak too, so I'll give each of you 2 minutes. And if you want to ask the government questions, the government will answer all the questions in one go. Just now, I wanted to point out that the logic of the Liberal Party is strange. They say that the resources can be left to the people in greatest need. If this is the logic of the Liberal Party, then why does it support the old age living allowance? Only elderly CSSA should be kept and the means test should be enhanced. Then that will be in line with the Liberal Party's logic. Well, Mr. Yick says that he supports that the asset ceiling be increased to 500,000. I think that's really weird. For universal retirement protection, we are not talking about poverty alleviation. This is a right. Hong Kong people, Hong Kong elders have made a lot of contribution to the Hong Kong society, so they should enjoy universal retirement protection. And for today's focus, Chairman, should be on the government. Universal retirement protection cannot be implemented. It's not because of anyone else. It's because of the government. So I hope Mr. Matthew Cheung can explain to us more about Professor Nelson Chow's report. What will the government do afterwards? Will the government introduce universal retirement protection? What's the timetable? What's the roadmap? Will a specified government departments be set up? Will you conduct public consultation on possible options? And C.Y. Leung promised that a fund will be set up for the elderly, and where is it now? Mr. Lau Chuk-kei. Just now, Mr. Yip Chiming made some remarks. And what Mr. Dominic Lee criticized should be targeting Yip Chiming. Why? According to his logic, why are we supporting other people's parents? Well, that question should be put to Yip Chiming. I think we should train our young people in a better manner. The Liberal Party also suggests that the OH allowance should be increased. So, Mr. Lee, does that mean supporting other people's parents? You are so unhappy about that. Well, you say that you don't want to support other people's parents, right? And also for means test, do you think it can help you screen people so that you can help the people in greatest need? No, that's not true. Well, Dominic Lee was playing online games, so he didn't pay attention to what other people said. The elders said this just now. They say that the means test disturbs them. They cannot enjoy a dignified retirement life. I'm a frontline worker. Sometimes I'll go to Tai Hang Tong. Well, I've also seen you in Tai Hang Tong as well. You can also talk to the elders there. You can say that, well, yes, we can give you protection, but how about another means test? Do you think the elders would not scold you? Well, you should look at the reality closer. You should talk to people directly. Miss Yu? I think for the same political party, they are talking about two things. The party has talking about one thing, and the frontline young people are talking about another thing. I think the Liberal Party should get another party. Well, the party leader of Liberal Party, I think you should pay attention to this young gentleman, Mr. Lee. Well, Mr. Matthew Chow, actually, we should be focusing on you, and Mr. Lee becomes the target. I think you should thank him by treating him to tea. We've been talking about universal retirement protection for so many years. How come it's still not implemented? The government has been stalling. Last year, there was some progress because you have invited Professor Nelson Chow to put together a report. But we have been waiting for a very long time. And another report, another study, another survey. Just now, a lady talked about the Shek-Wu-Hui workers. And they are outsourced cleaners. In 10 years' time, they will be retiring. They have no hope. We have talked to the workers. We asked them, are you worried about your retirement? They said, yes, I only have $10,000. So how can I retire? They don't see any protection for their retirement. If the government continues to drag its feet, what will happen? For a statutory minimum wage, you have been stalling for a dozen years, and now is the turn of universal retirement protection. This is the crux of the issue. I hope the government would speed up, and there should be a timetable, a roadmap for the realization of universal retirement protection. Next, Yang Ho-Chun. I want to say a few words. Well, Liberal Party does not object to retirement protection. We just object to the lack of means test. We want the resources to be in the hands of the most needy. I would like to stress this. We hope that everybody can enjoy retirement protection, but only those in need should have this kind of protection. And what is a good discussion? If it is a discussion, you should say that, well, we object to the so-called threshold suggested by the Liberal Party. Then this is a discussion. It's not like what they said. Well, you can continue to laugh at Dominic Lee saying that he is playing online game. But is it because of my playing online game that the government drags his feet? A lot of people have been criticizing Dominic Lee. Now, what is a discussion? You can query me, you can ask me questions, but you shouldn't say that I object to retirement protection. So this is discussion. This is what you see today. Ms. Yu, can you let him finish his speech? So I would like to reiterate this. The Liberal Party supports retirement protection, but we hope that there are as a means test so as to ensure that the money goes to the needy. Cho Kit Yin. Oh, you can see that how people badmouth the young people. I never believed that because a lot of young people act as interns for me, and I don't think they are that bad. But for today's young people, you can say that their thinking is really problematic. Well, suddenly they say that I just want to support my parents, I don't want to support other people's parents, and I like to save money. I think this is very selfish. So I looked at Lao Chake. Well, you can look at me. It doesn't matter. In a dozen years, I will be an old person as well. I will not beg in front of your door. I'm very unhappy. How can I put my future in the hands of young people like this? They have never thought for the society. When you were born, you already were a Hong Kong citizen. You have responsibility for Hong Kong. Don't be so selfish, young people. We also have to pay tax. We also have to contribute to the society of Hong Kong. You will also grow old someday. Don't just think about your own self. Oh, look at this name list. I'm from Sham Shui Po. I'm very close to you. Come to visit my old friends. You are welcome. Ms. Yu Chun Wei, now is your turn. If this two scums of the earth are going to be like this, well, you cannot use words like that. Well, can I speak? He can speak and I cannot speak. But you cannot use words like that. So I'm allowed to speak, right? They have to support their parents. So their parents are humans and other people's parents are not human. Is everybody born as rich as you do? We have been working so hard. We work in factories. We were construction workers. When you were born, you were already this big. You are not speaking like a human. I believe we understand what you mean. Do you want to add new opinions? Do you think you will sail smoothly all your life? You think that there will not be a day that you need support from others? Thank you. I don't believe you will be rich for the rest of your life. You are repeating yourself. Thank you. Next, Mr. Leung Ka-wai. Monsieur, please let other people speak. Your turn is up. Mr. Leung. I would like to supplement, and I hope that the Secretary can respond to me. The civil power, well, it's not that we do not support retirement protection, but why is there a need for a means test? Because we do not want to increase the burden on the public coffers. Well, some people said that means test is not welcome by the elderly. So, Secretary, can you come up with ways to simplify the means test so that it won't be so disturbing or annoying to the applicants? Next, Ms. Chung Chek-yi. Or Ms. Pearl Chung. I would like to repeat once more. The Liberal Party has never said that it does not support universal retirement protection. We actually support it, but the government must come up with a good plan. This is point 1. And point 2, I would like to talk about myself. I was not born in the 80s or 90s. I'm older. I'm already a mother. When I moved to Hong Kong, I worked very hard. I think I do not have such a high academic qualification as Ms. Ching. She's a university graduate. When I first came to Hong Kong, I only made $1,000 a month. I worked very hard. We came from an impoverished family. We have never thought that the government would come to our help. We just worked hard with our own hands. I was born in the 70s. My father is now in his 70s, my mother in her 60s. They are only getting old age allowance, and my mom even hasn't applied for it. And she's now still a cleaner for an office. I am working. I would give them money every month, and that's more than $3,000, what the government is offering. I'm a single mom. I have to raise a daughter. I would educate her. I hope that when she is capable, she can take care of her parents and other people's parents.
Thirdly, I go to help the elderly in the community every day. Many elders don't want us to help them. They want to be self-reliant. I advise them to apply for CSSA, but they don't want to. Thank you. Mr. Lee Chikin. Mr. Dominic Lee. Thank you. Well, I'll just respond to 2 points here. Now, since Mr. Yik is not here, I'd like to clarify on behalf of the LP. We propose that the ceiling for asset the asset ceiling should be enhanced for OALA. Is it against our principle that social resources should be deployed to help the genuinely needy? Well, we believe that the threshold proposed by the government was far too low, so we want to raise it to $500,000. Now, we talked about universal retirement protection. We have to understand what is meant by universal retirement protection. We do support some kind of universal retirement protection for the community. We are only against the model or proposal by the alliance. Now, we only asking for a means test. You don't have to mind. It's very simple. When I know that I am eligible. Now, I don't know how the government is going to set the eligibility criteria. Now, if I fulfill the criteria, then I can apply for the protection. The government can ask NGOs to help. You may say that people who don't know how to apply for it, it doesn't matter. The government can offer support. Well, they talk about polarization and family problems. These are not genuine problems. If you are eligible, you are eligible. If you fulfill the requirement or the criteria, then you are eligible, because our resources are unlimited and we should deploy resources to those in greatest need. Thank you. Secretary, 1 or 2 speakers would like you to tell us specifically whether there will be another round of public consultation after the report is published, or whether a task force will be set up to follow up on the recommendations. Thank you. Professor Chow will have completed and submitted his report to the Commission on Poverty by the end of June, and the Commission will immediately decide on the way forward. There will certainly be public consultation and also consultation of LegCo. And I also like to stress that this report is very different from previous ones. In the past, the administration did not consider proposals from the community very carefully. However, this time Professor Chow has a totally different approach. We know that there are a few proposals from the community, from organizations and political parties involving tripartite contribution, for instance. We're also doing actuarial studies for some of the more representative models. We will consider the fiscal viability and long-term sustainability of these models. So this report is going to be very different from previous ones. I hope that it can give us a very clear way forward so that it can be the basis for future discussion, because there are bound to be profound implications to the whole community, and the report should be available by the end of by the end of June, and very soon you'll be able to know what the government plans to do. All right, we go back to Q&As from members. I still have two names in the first round, Mr. Tan Ka-pyo and also Madam Chang Yin-han. Madam Chang Yin-han, thank you. There are 4 meetings going on concurrently, so I have to go between meetings. Secretary, there are different views expressed this afternoon, and there have been heated debates. I believe that Professor Chow would give us a preferred model, and I think there are bound to be arguments. It's just like the issue of statutory minimum wage, standard working hours, and offsetting arrangements in MPF. It is normal for a pluralistic society to have different views. It's important that we have rational debate instead of attacks at one another. So, Secretary, can you please confirm that the report will contain some recommended models instead of just principles? Now, you tell us that the report will be available in June, end of June. Please let us have the time frame as soon as possible, because we need time. We need to plan for our work, because meanwhile there will also be the constitutional reform package. I think some individuals have taken words from me. I myself have also fought for universal retirement protection for decades. We have a few important tasks in front of us as far as this council is concerned. So I'd like to know whether the report to be published or to be available in end June will contain any recommended model. We're going to discuss the report in July. I'm sure many organizations would like to express their views to us. So please give us some idea. It all depends on when the report will be presented to members of the Commission. As soon as we have the report, we will start our work. So the next meeting is scheduled for the 14th of June or 24th of June. I can't be sure as to whether the report will be available on by that day. If we can only have the report in end June, I'm afraid you may have to reschedule your meeting. Whether there will be any recommended model in the report, it is for the Commission to decide on the way forward. 4 legislators, including Mr. John Kwok-ki, K.K. Fung, Michael Tian, and Leung Chi-chang, are members of the Commission. I'm sure they are going to monitor our work very vigorously. Still, this is your responsibility, Secretary. You must relay our concerns to the Commission or the task force. I hope that the report can be presented to us simultaneously to the Commission. I have to discuss with the Secretary first. After all, we have our own mode of operation in the Commission. Still, I will reflect your views to the Commission. You are an experienced official, Secretary. But let me tell you that we took pains to ensure that the Secretary could come today. He understood that you were rather unhappy because he was absent last time. So we took pains to ensure that he can be available today, so to be fair to him. Now, we have another meeting on public markets. I have to go soon. Now, assuming that the report can be available in June, are we going to meet in July? I'd just like to know your timetable, or will you just adopt a wait-and-see attitude? It all depends on when the report is available. As soon as the Commission has the report, it will start reading it, and then we will have a very clear way forward. Starting from there, I will approach you, Chairman, and Mr. Cheung Kwok-chu at once. The report has a very solid foundation for discussion in the community. We cannot have the matter settled within a few members. I'm sure there will be an open debate in society. All right, Dr. Fernando Cheung speaking for the first time. Thank you. I thank the deputations for coming this afternoon. In particular, Madam Yu Chung-yun, I hope you can take care, and because perhaps young people are rather naive and ignorant, I think we have to face up to this serious problem of poverty among elders. I'm sure Mr. Matthew Cheung knows the problem. I'm a bit worried, however. Mr. Cheung said that once the report from Professor Chow is available, it has to be submitted to the Commission for discussion, and it will be for members to decide on the way forward. The Commission is chaired by the CS4A, with the Secretary as one of the members. This sounds rather vague. I believe Professor Chow's report will be quite concrete. He is going to conduct actuarial studies on all of the models proposed. So there are bound to be information on the feasibility of these models. Now let's set aside the views of the Commission. I'm asking for your view, Secretary. You are, after all, the leader of the Labor and Welfare Bureau, and I think you do care a lot about the welfare of elderly persons. Will you tell us, or will you consult the public on the recommended models in Professor Chow's report, so that the public can tell you what model should be adopted for Hong Kong for retirement protection? If yes, can you tell us roughly the timetable? Please be more specific and show us some leadership. Now, to answer your question, I have to say this. The whole thing is being led by the Commission on Poverty. It is a fact. Of course, my bureau has an important role to play in following up the recommendations. However, this matter is also closely related to our MPF system, so we must respect the system. And of course, I'm very concerned about this subject. Depending on the final recommendations of Professor Chow's report, I cannot preempt his recommendations. I'm sure the report will be a very useful and solid basis for further discussion in the community. Of course, we must set store about the views of the public. We can't just throw the report out and say that this is the model. Well, then it sounds risky. If Professor Nelson Chow's report is just a basis for discussion, well, as said by our chairman, Madam Chen Yunhan, we have discussed this issue for many, many years, and we are going to retire soon. We started this discussion when we were in our prime years, and now we almost have to seek retirement protection. So is the government committed to setting up a universal retirement system? If not, you are just stalling, and yet the current systems are not improved at all. For instance, the high administrative costs and low return of MPF and the offsetting arrangements and the requirement for sons and daughters to make a declaration to forfeit the parents under CSSA application. And for proposals from civic organizations, you say that they are not feasible. In fact, we have given you actuarial studies. And for the pro-establishment camp, they know only how to criticize our proposal without giving any solutions. The community has given you a model, and yet the government is dragging its feet. So, Chairman, what should we do? I am concerned that we, or this subcommittee, must press for some fruitful outcome, and yet the government is just stalling. What should we do? Should we continue to put up with their stalling, or should we start a social movement? Do we all have to join in long hairs filibustering before we can see some results?
Secretary, members have spoken, and they hope that you can tell the Commission on Poverty clearly. That is, they should come up with options, and there should be public consultations. As for the first round of questions, is ended. Now let's start the second round. Liang Guohong, 4 minutes. In March last year, Professor Chow was appointed by you to conduct a study, and by June this year, the report will be out. So it's like the nominating committee is institutional, and you go back to the Commission on Poverty. Now, why has this COP so much power? The government is the administrator. The CY Leung said that he would set up a fund for the elderly, and now you are establishing a future fund. How much money do we have? We will be chipping in $220 billion for a future fund. So how much money is left for an elderly fund? That's why I asked you to set aside $50 billion first, but you don't listen to me. And I told you that by 2017 you have to get this done. I'm already very lenient, but you do not give me your word. You're forcing me to filibuster. So can you do it by 2017? Can you do that? If you can do that, then I may not filibuster. So can you give me your word? Well, what is CY Leung's platform doing? What is his manifesto doing? Is it just full of hot air? So I'm asking you this question. So do you think you can get this done by 2017? Did CY Leung instruct you to set up an elderly fund? Other secretaries have got their monies. Have you got yours? No, you haven't said anything. So what have you done? Now I ask you two questions. C.Y. Leung said that a fund will be set up for the elderly for retirement. You are an accountable official. He's your boss. So has he instructed you to do that? And also, have you conducted a feasibility study? Can you realize universal retirement protection by 2017? That is, Professor Chow in June 2014 will come up with a report. So can you implement universal retirement protection by 2017? If you can answer this question, then I may not filibuster. Ask him if he would like to answer. You have 1 minute. I would like to reiterate that this term of government really cares about the welfare of the elderly. But C.Y. Leung's manifesto will only last till 2017. So when will we see the universal retirement protection? Poverty and elderly are the four major tasks of this government. Two of the four major tasks of this government. We have 420,000 elders who are relying on government allowance. But C.Y. Leung has never talked about future fund. He has talked about a fund for retirement. So I'm asking you to do this. Why don't you remind your boss in his manifesto? He has talked about this fund for retirement. So please relay the message to the CE. I think it's about time. Members, do you have any other questions? If not, let's move on to the next agenda item. That is subjects to be discussed at meetings in May to July. We hope that Professor Chow's report can be published in May. Then at the May meeting, we can invite him to come to talk to us. However, the report will not be ready in May. So the professor said that is not the right time. So on the 27th of May, we will invite the deputations who have given us proposals in the past to come to our meeting. Now, because 2 or 3 years have passed, there may have been changes, so they can update their proposals. And some deputations didn't have enough time to give us the proposals. So on the 27th of May, they can do that. We hope that we can discuss all these within 2 hours. For the last term of Subcommittee on Universal Retirement Protection, they have asked the research division to conduct a study on the retirement protections in several countries. And now we hope that this report can be updated. The new report will be given to members in June. Do members have any objections to that? If not, then on the 27th of May we will be discussing all these. Thank you.